Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I'm here with Russell Case.
Are you feeling any better, Harmony?
A little bit.
You're feeling a bit better because
Yeah.
you've been poorly.
I've been a little poorly these last couple days.
Sickly.
Yeah.
But you're still going to get up for a podcast today.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Well, what do you have for us today? This is so exciting.
Today we have Dr. Rob joining us.
Dr. Rob from Mysore.
Yeah.
Our old buddy from Mysore.
Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Rob.
From More Than
Harmony,
Anatomy, right?
Yeah. Great to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
I thought that you had given me a treatment at one point to fix me, and as it turns out, that there were a number of chiropractors and acupuncturists on hand in Gokulam to kind of fix us. And I gather we have never really met then.
I don't believe so. If memory serves me correct, we've never met, Russell. There's, as you know, Mysore is such a transient community. So many people coming in and out that I've met a number of chiropractors over the year and lots of great acupuncturists and massage therapists. So I think it must have been someone else.
Gosh, we sound like Roma or gypsies.
We were gypsies.
Travelers.
Did you meet Sean Clear, the acupuncturist from London?
Sean Clear? No, I didn't. Okay.
I just thought you're both English,
It doesn't ring a bell.
You're from Hampshire.
I'm from Hampshire originally, yes.
And where in England is that exactly?
Hampshire is southern England. So it kind of goes down to the south coast and it's just underneath London.
Oh, so it's sort of on the way to Dorset.
You kind of.
West of Brighton, west of Hove, and just on the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
slightly west of Brighton. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you from where my family's home is, then if you drive about an hour, you reach London. If you drive to about north roughly, and if you drive south roughly, you reach Southampton, Portsmouth.
Okay. Oh, Portsmouth. Yeah. I've been to Portsmouth a couple of times.
Have you?
Beach. Yeah. I lived in Brighton for a couple of years. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Brighton's nice. Brighton's very nice.
It is nice. Everyone likes Brighton. Brighton.
When was that?
I figure we rubbed elbows together in Mysore in 2003, and then I moved to Brighton straight away. I got a job at the Brighton Natural Health Centre. I got a gig. I took over Julie Martin's place at the Brighton Natural Health Centre and was there about 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then Sarah Miles took it over, the lovely Sarah Miles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, what great experience. Yeah, Brighton's got some sun compared to the rest of England.
That's what they say.
It's true. Yeah, and lovely rocky beaches that are very, very uncomfortable to lie on. You try and soak up the sun. It's like, this is a bit uncomfortable. So you were destined to be a farmer in the south of England.
I was, by all accounts, I should be a farmer. That's the kind of family tradition, which as a kid, I was not interested in. My brother, he was always going to be the farmer. It was very clear that he was going to be the farmer. He went to agricultural college and is still farming today. And it didn't really, I watched a lot of black and white movies when I was a kid. I was just completely enamored with TV. And I thought there was probably far more glamorous things to be doing than farming at the time. So I was drawn in a different direction.
Can you dig into this a little bit about farming, because it's quite a bit different than in the States? Because I grew up in farm country in the States, and even though the farming kids were a bit wealthier than the townies, and they were a bit more had a bit more status, they still weren't posh. And so like the city kids were posh. But I think I dare say it's very different in England, where being a farmer is really quite a lot of status.
It depends how big your farm is, I would say.
Okay.
So the big landowners that have got kind of farms that are 2,000-3,000 acres and above, then yes, they can be quite wealthy and often have quite high status. My family's farm is about 500 acres, so on the smaller side. I wouldn't said that we toured through the countryside and people waving at us, recognizing us back in the day. So we were kind of medium well off. We were kind of middle class, you might say.
Right.
We were.
Yeah. What were you growing?
Well, they used to do a lot of beef. They were beef farmers, to be honest, which I hate to say, for many years. And then they stopped that maybe 20 years ago. Yeah. And now mostly it's wheat. So it's all the kind of, commercial crops. It's wheat, it's canola or rapeseed oil. A lot of peas for pea protein for animal feed. Some oats once in a while, not very often, a little bit of rye barley once in a while. But mostly wheat is where the money is.
Those giant, lovely yellow fields are
that's the canola,
the rapeseed. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, gorgeous.
It looks beautiful, but not good for you.
Yeah, we have that a lot of that here in Alberta and British Columbia too. These beautiful yellow fields.
They look stunning.
Yeah, we have a lot of ranching too in this area. So.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
What's the crop there?
Well, Alberta's famous for their beef, so
it's beef country.
Okay.
Beef and wheat, basically.
It's the Texas of Canada, actually, because it's
oil
and beef here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're
and
like
it's gigantic.
Cowboy capital of Canada.
It's like the size of Europe. Alberta is like the same size
just
as
a province.
It's the same size as Europe.
It is.
It is insane amount of space
and mostly land.
I mean,
people.
To be honest, I think it's probably about the size of France and Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fucking massive. We have a very small section of it ourselves.
Yes. Very tiny.
Very tiny.
A backyard.
We do.
Do you have any livestock in your backyard?
We have a doggy.
Oh, there's one.
Yeah, we have a doggy, and we have
livestock dog.
I keep squirrels.
We're not going to eat her.
And I have 20 house sparrows that I feed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's good. It used to be like 5 or 6, and now it's 20. And then we used to have like 1 or 2 squirrels. Now we have like 15 squirrels. I think.
What are you feeding them to attract them to your place?
Sunflower seeds, and they come in their droves.
It's true.
Yeah.
Nice.
But what then motivated you to go into chiropractic school? How did you become a chiropractor?
Well, it's a long story, Sri. There's lots of steps along the way.
Know.
You're missing a few things. He sent us a few things. So you were 16 and you decided to become a professional golfer. You have to read these things, Sri. You were a professional golfer. Now that sounds quite posh, to be honest.
I never turned professional. My aim was to become professional. But yeah, when I was kind of leaving school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. So although I knew I didn't want to be a farmer, I didn't have much other kind of inkling of what I wanted. And then I was playing golf at that time. I wasn't particularly good, to be honest. I was quite rubbish, in fact. But for some reason, the golf professional at the club was desperate to get someone to work for him, and ideally someone young that he could pay very little money for long hours. And I fitted the bill very nicely.
That's right.
Nice.
So as I had nothing better to do, I accepted. And over the next couple of years, then I actually, with a bit of application, because for some reason I'm able to apply myself quite well to certain things at certain times, I actually started to become half decent. To a point where the lowest handicap I ever got to was scratch, if that means anything to you.
It does.
That's good.
That's an excellent handicap. What do you mean you were rubbish? You're a scratch golfer, man.
Well, yeah, I was rubbish to begin with, but I got to scratch. So that took that took a little while.
Yeah, it does.
And that was fun. So I played a lot of kind of amateur stuff. So my aim was that I would play kind of amateur circuit stuff, build my experience, and develop my game. And then when I felt ready, I would turn professional. That was the kind of goal.
Yeah.
But then I had some back issues, which really kind of got in the way of my game.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really struggling for quite a number of years, really, with it.
Yeah, yoga for golfers is very popular because of these back issues.
Yeah, it's very, as one chiropractor that I follow sometimes says that, if, at some point in time, if you play golf, you're gonna have a bad back.
Yeah,
it's brutal on the back, really.
Yeah, it's like that swinging and twisting.
Always
and
only
twisting the lumbar spine,
and only one direction.
Yeah, lopsided sport, not good. And then the lumbar spine doesn't like to rotate, and golf tends to force it to do so.
Yeah,
right.
I think it'd be interesting for the sport if every other shot you had to switch hands. You had to go from left-handed to right-handed. I think it would really be that
would up the ante.
It would up the ante. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you'd have to flip for it at every hole. Who's gonna go left-handed this hole?
I think there was a famous golfer called Seve Ballesteros, a Spanish.
Golfer. Yeah, Seve,
yeah, Seve. Yeah, he died a few years ago from a brain tumor. But
I was told a story. 2 green jackets, Seve.
He won the Masters, and he won the Open a few times. Very good golfer, but he could play left-handed. And my understanding, or a story I heard, that he had a handicap of 3 playing left-handed.
Wow.
So he was super good.
Yeah. I think that would be good. They should have to switch every hole. It would help their spines.
Our friend Robbie Cavallero, who's on the show, told me stories about Seve out there with a stick and a pebble, and that's how he taught himself to play golf. It was just a stick, because he loved the game so much. He would just go out there with that.
Exactly, yeah. And then at midnight, or when it was dark, he would sneak onto the course that neighbored his home and play a few holes in the pitch black.
Yeah. Good.
It's incredible.
So there's a couple stories there, I think, with you that you wrote us about, Harmony, that were interesting. There's the one about being in the golf shop with your book, and then there's the other story about just wandering into the yoga class at the golf club. And I wonder, which one would you like to start with? Because they're both really fascinating.
I think that the most actually both were life-changing, but the most life-changing really was the book story.
You had this Jeffrey Archer book, didn't you?
Jeffrey, yes.
And what is that?
So have you heard of Jeffrey Archer?
I don't think so. You said Cain and Abel by Jeffrey Archer. What sort of book is that?
It's a piece of fiction. He's written some excellent pieces of fiction. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy.
Oh yeah, I know Jeffrey Archer. Sir Alec Guinness is my hero. Okay. My life's mission is to end up with a voice like his. That's what I'd
fabulous. Like to. Absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
So lots of amazing novels that pieces of fiction that he's written over the years. And when I was working at a golf club, I would kind of have 4 or 5 hours where I'd spend in the golf store, like in a row, and it was the quietest golf club. If I saw one customer, that was a busy day. So I had all this time, and so I was supposed to dust all the time. I was supposed to be dusting, which I hated, so I never dusted. And then so I was left to my own devices. So I started reading books and pieces of fiction. And obviously, you've never seen this book, but it's a thick piece of fiction. And I was very proud that I had this big, thick book, and I was reading it away. And one day, this elderly gentleman, his name was Frank Weldon, very quiet fellow. He came in. He said, "What do you know? You've seem to have a lot of time in your hands. What do you do with your spare time?" And I'm like, yeah. And I went around the back and I produced this thick book, wanting to show him. And see how impressed he was that I had the intelligence to read such large pieces of literature, and he was not impressed at all. He shook his head and he said, "You really should do something more useful with your time." Oh, and I was completely devastated. It was when you kind of present yourself to someone, you laid yourself in your line like this. I want to get praise now or feel good from your good words. That was completely lacking.
That's the sort of fellow that walks around the art schools and does a critique, and he walks into each of our studios and he just shakes his head. You're wasting your life here. I was like, what? I'm
really trying.
I'm really trying. No. But this guy sounds like the arts are just rubbish for him.
It's pretty much like that. And I guess in that situation with the arts, you can either drive you to better things or you can give up. And so I decided it should drive me to better pieces of reading. So I went to the bookshop. There were bookshops back in the day, and there's not many bookshops nowadays, as we know. But back then there was a bookshop I went to, and I looked in the kind of self-help section and looking for different things, and I picked up 2 books, and one was Anthony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, and the other was the Hay Diet.
Oh.
By Louise Hay.
Yeah. So I was completely blown away by both of those. It really, it was the point where I kind of opened my eyes to the world, that I realized that there's so much out there that we can gain knowledge from, and so much we can learn, and so many ways that we can evolve. And I guess the evolution that's happened in me has never really completely stopped since that point. And so at the most crucial points in my life, I kind of see the Frank Weldon moment, as I might nickname it as.
You got a moment named after him. That's so impressive.
Exactly. If anyone's listening who knows Frank Weldon and knows his whereabouts, please get in touch. But I learned a great deal from that guy just in that moment. And I think that's beauty. That we watched, Tara and I watched this movie the other day. We've seen it before. Sliding Doors. Have you seen that with the Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, I know that one.
Where she jumps into the tube one day and she misses it the next day on that moment, and our life takes completely different directions.
And and
it's almost like that kind of.
I know our listeners at home are waiting for me to speak up, because that I also had one of those sliding door moments when I was in Carlsbad, California, and Louise Hay stuck her tongue in my ear, which was a phenomenal, life-changing.
It's not a sliding door moment.
It is a sliding door moment. If
it's a slippery moment, but
your ear, then you would also feel transformed by the moment. We became quite close.
No, you didn't.
We did
for 3 seconds.
Well, we were quite close, and that went for 3 seconds.
Why on earth was she doing that?
She was neighbors with my boss, Jean and Salima Ruffin. And so we were out to have dinner, and I was there as a modest young man trying to be, very polite and nice and eye candy, and she drank
bit too much.
She'd had a bit too much to drink. And then
she was quite elderly at this time.
She was like 80,
she
was 87, something like that, 85, 87. And they went to go get the car, and they said, just keep her upright. I said, all right. I said, keep her upright. And then she turned to me and got very close to my face and said, isn't it nice that we could become so close so quickly? I said, yes, it is nice. And then she tongued my ear. And I was like, this is fantastic. I could go to bed with this woman. It would be the most amazing thing. And how much better would the story be if I bedded her, right? As a 35-year-old, and I took her to bed, and it would be the best story ever. Right now, I feel really it's quite frustrating. I didn't consummate the story, But that was transformative for me. I haven't been the same since.
No, I can imagine.
No, and I was quite stricken when she passed. Actually,
you weren't. You're so full of it.
Wow. Well, you should better yourself. For you listeners at home, you should better yourself, and you can't do wrong with Louise Hay.
I love her. Change your heal your life.
You have all of her books.
I have a lot of
all of them.
I know. I love her.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So after this moment, you started on a massive journey of self-realization and personal development and opening your heart and your mind to all these new ideas.
Yeah. So to begin with, it was mostly towards my kind of golf career. And so it really, especially Anthony Robbins' book, it really made me appreciate the power of the mind. And, golf, they say, is 90-95% between the ears.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's concentration. It's not letting negative thoughts come in. So it's a bit like meditation in some ways. You really have to be in the zone. So it really strengthened my mental game, which, was the thing that improved me a great deal. And then the nutrition side to give me more energy, you know, to more stamina when I was playing. Sometimes before that, I would get tired towards the end of a game. So the nutrition really helped to make sure that I could stay physically and mentally alert when I was competing. So it was on that level to begin with, and then over a period of time, slowly moving more towards more kind of spirituality, I would guess, and connecting to myself and eventually to the rest of the world, I guess.
So then how did the
universe in some way.
Yeah. How did you stumble into a yoga class?
So after about 2.5 years of playing golf quite a lot, I developed all these back issues, and I saw lots of different people. I saw chiropractors and physiotherapists and doctors and massage therapists, all these different people. None of them really helped. And I kind of struggled away, and sometimes it get a bit better and I could play again. And sometimes it would just go back to square one. And then I was at the gym a lot at that time. This is fast forward a couple of years. I'm trying to get my back stronger and going around in a circle. Like it just wouldn't improve things. And one of the gym instructors said, "Oh, you should meet my friend. She practiced a little bit of yoga." And so I chatted with her, and then she said, "Well, my teacher's coming to this yoga class and they're hosting it at the golf club. So why didn't you come to that?" I was like, "Okay, sure." So I went to it, and her name was Bobby. I really can't remember her second name, but she was an Iyengar teacher of many, many years. Bobby must have been about 60, but she's maybe 150 for all I know. I've got no idea. You know, she's one of the people that you see, you know, and hopefully we'll be the same when we're 80, that we look really, you know, lean and illustrious and glowing eyes and
that's the idea. That's the goal.
That's the idea, isn't it?
Take care of our brains to make that happen.
Exactly.
Or just eat less cheese, I think. So.
Yeah, that will help.
That would help.
And so Bobby was, I was quite taken by Bobby, not as much as you were by Louise Hay.
She took me, sir. She took me. Oh yeah, that's what you said. I was taken by Louise Hay. Yeah, she did take me. Yeah, she had me, rather.
And it was a mind-opening moment, because she could move her body in all these different ways, and I realized just how little I could move my body, how, you know, disconnected I was with my body, how in pain I was in making these different movements, how stiff I was. And I was particularly blown away by how she could move her feet. You know, when someone's been practicing yoga, which I can now do, fortunately, but when someone's been really practicing yoga for a long time, they can really pick their toes up and spread them out. They've got complete control over them. She could do that. And I was like, wow, what could she? She's amazing. And I looked at my feet, and they just wouldn't move. You know, I couldn't do anything with them. So it really it opened my eyes, and I fully understood why I had back issues. Because one, I was stiff as a board. Two, I was disconnected from my body. And I was physically and kind of in some ways mentally weak as well. So, you know, that really, that was the turning point when it, you know, or the eye-opening moment in terms of realizing the potential that yoga has. And I've been just this massive believer in it ever since.
It's interesting. I love how you bring emphasis to the toes and the feet. It's such a curious thing to notice, and it's lovely. Growing up, I'd always kind of would do these. You know, my parents would have me take my socks off, and they would have me show what I could do with my toes, and so like, you know, I could pick up a tennis ball with my toes and my feet, and it was just always something like, look, our son's a monkey, you know, these cute. And then I went to India, and it was the first time that I noticed people with the same kind of feet as me, and everyone's walking around, their feet and toes are spread wide out, especially the laborers walking out with these bags on their head. And I'd look down at their feet, and I said, oh God, their toes look just like mine. And it was the first time I ever really thought about the toes being something that could be special.
Special.
And then I started really kind of playing with it in the yoga classes. Like, here, look, we should all be spreading out our toes and getting a nice wide platform. And I think I heard David Swenson mention something like that, you know, having a nice wide platform for when you're doing the balancing postures. Unfortunately, like, no shoes will fit me. And it's just, there are disadvantages, is what I'm trying to say.
But yeah, when you go to India, you really do see that a great deal, where they've not had their feet in shoes for most of their life, as you said, particularly the laborers or the more farmers, for example. I used to live on an ashram many years ago in India, and it was a very rural community, and they often would walk barefoot, and it's a delight to see such a healthy foot.
Yeah, it is delightful.
You don't see it. You don't see it very much in the Western world.
No, it's the total inverse of how our feet look here. It's like a pointed arrow. That's what all the feet look like in the West. Whereas it's a fan in India, or in Southern Illinois, where I grew up, with, you know, in my foot. And so my foot's like a fan, and nothing in a no shoe foot fits that. There's no shoe made for that. Even all these like ergonomically newfangled shoes that are made to keep your foot wide, they're still, I feel like, constrained in them still.
Am I allowed to? I was going to suggest a brand of shoes, but am I allowed?
Yeah,
yes. And we'll contact.
Let's hit them up and get.
Yeah, we'll contact them about sponsorship. We're eager for new sponsors.
Or any sponsors.
Or any sponsors.
Have you not tried? Because I find that the Vivo Barefoots, they have a really wide toe box.
Vivo Barefoot.
Have you tried those?
No, I haven't.
Try we have
those. We have tried Dos Equis, and if you are interested in a beer for the most interesting man in the world, in today's case, it's Dr. Rob, try Dos Equis.
But Vivo.
Vivo Barefoot, yeah.
Vivo Barefoot.
VIVO.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully they're watching and they're pleased with this plug.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get.
Hit them up.
I'll do that. Vivo Barefoot. And,
so have you noticed, like, as a chiropractor now, with all of your years of experience, that like people's feet will often, you know, change the way their spine is?
Yeah, it really can. It really can. You know, you'll often, you know, you can argue that it can happen from the kind of low back pelvis down, affecting the foot, but it also can affect, you know, the foot going up into the spine. They did a fascinating study years ago where they put heel wedges, you know, a little lift towards the heel of a shoe to make it a little bit higher and change the architecture a little bit. They did an MRI before, and then an MRI about 6 or 8 weeks later. Yeah. And what they saw was there was actually injury to the bone. Ooh. The bones of the spine, they were actually injured. They're under greater stress because the individual was walking differently. In fact, one person developed such bad sciatica that they had to stop. They had to stop the actual trial on him.
You mean like if a lady wore high heel shoes, for example, that would do that?
It would have an effect on the bone structure, definitely. But what they did was they just did it in one side.
Oh, one side.
Oh God. No, don't do that. That's inhumane, man. Yeah. God damn.
But for sure, if you change the way you walk, if you change the foot's architecture, there will be a different stress acting through the foot and therefore the spine. And because bone adapts to how it's loaded, according to Wolff's law, then that bone architecture will start to change. That can have a positive effect or a negative effect in obviously this case.
Yeah. What I've always found really interesting, because I have a little bit of scoliosis. My spine is like twisted a little bit, which created the scoliosis.
A little bit. Jesus.
So what I've always found really interesting is my arches are different. So one is a little bit higher than the other. And then I don't know if it's that specific thing or the twist in the spine, but I mean, it's all probably related. Well, but the shape of my legs is also different because of that. Yeah. Like one's a little more bowed and one's a little bit more straight.
For sure. Your father, your brother, and your niece all have exactly the same body and the same spine. It's a tragedy.
It's a genetic problem.
By the way, Vivo Barefoot offer a range of barefoot shoes for men, women, and children. Ultra thin, puncture resistant shoes let your feet do the natural thing. And they're going to send some footwear to us, which is nice. And we'll give them out to some lucky winner at the end of the show.
Fantastic.
Can you tell us a little bit about, because we want to get to your body of knowledge with the chiropractor and your whole experience of India, which is fascinating. But how is it, because this must be really difficult to leave golf behind, and I think you're like a 22, 23-year-old, and you've decided to move to do something completely different. You decided to just become a yoga teacher, and I wonder if you could tell us about that.
Yeah, it was. I do regard it as a slightly harebrained idea. You know, why you? It's like saying I'm going to become a teacher of Urdu, and you've never looked at an Urdu dictionary. You don't know anything about Urdu. So it's completely ridiculous, really. I guess I like the. You know, it's almost like I like the sound of Urdu, but I didn't know how to teach it. So I liked the idea of yoga. You know, I'd been practicing for. How old was I then? So I've been practicing for maybe 2 or 3 years, and I guess it was the only constant in my life at that point, apart from golf, which it wasn't something I was going to pursue anymore.
It was just too painful, was it? Golf?
Yeah, it was yes, yeah, in many ways. You know, every time I don't play anymore. I haven't played for quite a number of years now. Every time I think about playing golf, my back hurts. There's that there's that negative association.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Anthony Robbins and the way he does NLP.
Yeah.
You know, for example, you hate carrots, so you think about carrots and then you feel nauseous about the carrot straight away, before you've even seen the carrot.
The psychosomatic response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, the back was pretty aggravated. You know, I could play and I could compete, and I could still actually compete to a half decent level, but then, you know, towards the end of the competition, I was really struggling. The next week, I'd be really struggling, and so it was, you know, it had no future really. Yeah. So that was put to one side, and the thought of becoming a yoga teacher sprung to my mind, and then I wondered how I was going to do that. And the first thing that came up was you know, back in the day, there was internet, wasn't it? There was AOL, and we used to log on to AOL and a horrible noise that went on for like an hour, and then you got connected.
Yeah. It's a real meditation at that point.
Exactly. And so there wasn't much information out there, but the main kind of yoga school that I knew of back then was the Shivananda.
Right.
And they had different teacher trainings, didn't they? They had them all over the world. Yeah. And I came across one in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
This sounds good. I'm gonna go there.
You were just in the Bahamas.
No,
I didn't go. I didn't go.
Bahamas. I see.
That one always seems good to me too.
And then, so just before I actually booked the Bahamas, my friend at the time said, look, if you're going to learn yoga, you should go to the source. You should go to India. This is where it's from.
Amazing.
And I'm like, oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I should go and do that. So then I started researching, and still there's no internet. And I came across this book. I don't know whether you guys ever heard of it. It's called From Here to Nirvana.
Oh, yeah. It's the Kurt Cobain biography.
No, it's not.
It's not. It's what inspired Kurt Cobain, maybe.
Oh, good. It's the suicidal tendencies, you mean? Yeah.
Maybe.
From Here to Nirvana. I feel like I've heard of this book.
But it was a book that listed just about all the kind of well-known ashrams and yoga teachers. So they had the Bitabi Jois, and they had A.G. Mohan. They had the Bihar School of Yoga.
It was like a spiritual, like Lonely Planet to India, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I had this book.
It's fantastic.
Wow. I traveled all around India, like going to all the gurus and things. I'd look up who did I want to go visit and how can I find them.
It's your spiritual tourist, for fuck's sake.
It's amazing. It was an amazing book. I don't know what happened to it, but
it's a great book.
Find a single path. Sweetie.
It was awesome. I wish I still had it.
What year were you doing that?
That was in 2005 and 6 and 7. I traveled a lot through India looking at all
You've got this relationship to Bitabi Jois already. Just stick with that. Nah. He was never enough for you, was he?
I wanted to meet all the gurus and all the teachers.
So this is 1998, and you just said you just up and went to India.
So what? But why did you choose that? Like Mysore? Did you choose Mysore? Or did you go somewhere else?
It's in the book, sweetie. It's in the book.
Just be quiet.
No, it's in. He's clearly setting this up.
Yeah,
you read the book.
I know. That's why I'm asking him the question.
Oh yeah, let's ask him the question.
You were reading the book, and like, what made you choose that place?
There was all sorts of different places they wanted to go. Because I had a kind of Iyengar background. You know, the teacher I mentioned, she was Iyengar. First of all, I thought about studying with B.N.S Iyengar in Pune, but then I heard it was quite difficult to get into. It took a bit of preparation.
And
I hate preparation. I just want to, if I want to do something, I don't like, if I'm going to assemble a piece of IKEA furniture, I don't really want to read the manual. I just want to start making it.
Oh, no, that's the word. No. Oh God!
Don't approach IKEA that way.
No, you don't approach IKEA that way.
I get it. I'm the same way. I'm like, do I want to do this? Yes or no? If it's yes, I want to do it now or like very soon.
No, you have to. You're never going to get a TV operating that way. You have to follow the instructions.
No.
Yeah.
So the fact that I had to apply, I didn't like the idea, and then with Pattabhi Jois, I think you had to apply as well, and so I wasn't interested right in it.
You had to just write a letter, but
it's still it's a bit much to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I looked at different places. I looked at Desikachar and all these different places. There was many, and there still is many great teachers at that time.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what I do first of all, I do a teacher training. I want to become a yoga teacher. I should do a teacher training, and I decided that I would go to a place called Vyasa. Which is now Vyasa, excuse me. It's at the time it's called Vivekananda Kendra in Bangalore, Prashanti Kutram Ashram, which is just outside of Bangalore. It's probably it's now how Bangalore's exploded. It's probably in the center of Bangalore, because Bangalore's gone completely insane. Yeah. But so I went there for a month and did this training, and it was intense. It was. I don't know how teachers train.
You said it was absolutely brutal, and you wrote down some of the things that you were asked to do, and it seems like they were like, it's like a cult technique to break down your body and mind so that you end up being like a slave.
What did you do? What was it like? Why was it brutal?
How? It was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, the time schedule, the time frame was brutal in the sense that the alarm would go around 4 in the morning, and for a Westerner who was, not used to this kind of schedule, it was terrible. So the alarm would go, and then it was non-stop yoga. It was like a yoga marathon within a day. So we would go out, we would do Om meditation, and then we do some asana, and then I think we had some breakfast, and then we would do some karma yoga, so like weaving in the mango grove. Then we would maybe have a little bit of tea or something, and then we would have lessons that we do Raja yoga and Jnana yoga, do all this theory. And then again, more asana, and then satsang, and all these different kind of components. It was fantastic because it gave such a comprehensive overview of yoga, not just asana and maybe a little bit of pranayama or something. It was just a bit of everything, which I really appreciated. It kind of made me appreciate initially that yoga was not just a physical practice. There was so much more to it. Not that fully set in, but
did they do the arati in the morning where you're like doing the hymns and chanting, and they're doing the flame with the puja?
No, they didn't. I know they didn't actually do that. No, not in our pit. We did an Om meditation. And no, we didn't do that.
Because I stayed once at the Ramakrishna ashram in Calcutta, or just outside of Calcutta, and it sounds very similar. It was like a kind of a similar schedule, but day would always start with this big sort of puja and singing and the lights. Arati. Thank you, Arati. And then if you were in their sort of program, I was just staying there as a guest, so I didn't have to do the karma yoga stuff. But other people who stayed there to kind of join their program, they were on a really intense schedule.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds a good experience that you had.
Yeah, it's nice though that was your first introduction to yoga, is learning about jnana yoga and karma yoga and bhakti yoga and raja yoga and all these
his first introduction was being indoctrinated.
No, it's like an education.
Really rough.
It was quite rough. I mean, it was, the day ended at 9:30. So it started at 4:30. I think the first class was 4:30, and it finished at 9:30. It actually finished with something they called happy time, which, to be honest, it was my most dreaded time of the day.
Unhappy time for you.
Oh God, it was absolute misery. They
enforced tantric
we gathered all the everyone in our group would gather together, and our kind of leader would suggest that someone enter the circle and do some kind of performance. They would sing a song or do a dance or tell a story or something. And this is just, for me, this is just a complete nightmare. I do not want to stand in front of people and start doing something like that, especially dancing or singing. So I dreaded that every single night. That was the worst thing. So I usually went to bed quite miserable. And then I'd been asleep for 5 minutes, and the bell would ring and I would have to start all again. So after about 3 days, I was really, I was absolutely miserable and just close to tears. But somehow I woke up and pulled through.
And you said that you would have to sit for hours on the ground, and you felt like your legs were going to fall off and be permanently damaged.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys experienced, but I certainly wasn't, when I went to India, I was certainly not experienced to sitting on the floor cross-legged. And I'm blessed with an extremely bony bottom.
That is a blessing, yeah.
Your sit bones would come out with bruises on them.
Oh, God. A nice squishy bum can be really helpful for these sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm hoping in my next life, because I'm pretty sure I'm going back, I'm hoping my next life I will have some kind of cushioning inbuilt rather than the need to have a cushion. So it does leave my sciatic nerve slightly vulnerable to compression. So sitting on a hard floor, I'd watch my fellow inmates, sitting ever so comfortably.
That's so Indian.
Inmates.
No, in India, they don't say roommates, they say inmates.
Oh, that's
but in America,
worst,
inmates is like a prisoner, right?
It is definitely
so funny. So I love that you use that term. It's so beautiful.
Can I just share with you just quickly, not to make the podcast about me, but in 1998, at the same time, I had moved to South Korea to teach English, and I was also experiencing agony, because the Koreans sit on the ground, or at least they did still 20 years ago. And so I'd spend 10 to 15 hours a day sitting on the ground. And I'd never done that. I mean, I'd played video games, played a bit of Atari on the ground. It was all right. But it was absolute agony sitting there. My legs were it transformed my body. At the end of it, my whole structure, hip structure, was just completely transformed. But the other thing they really like to do is happy time, where you should do group performance, and like you should sing karaoke, or norebang as they would call it, and then they would like it. So I developed a group of friends who were a panzori team who would do the samonori, traditional Korean drumming, and they got this idea that it'd be super fun to start every show with Russell doing like a performance first. And they thought this would be stupid and weird. It'd be great. It's so hip, and beat. And so I would do like a headstand and in front of everybody, and everybody would clap. And then I would sing Love Me Tender by Elvis. And it was just the most bizarre opening act to a traditional Korean. And it was just like, I just really got into the idea of doing like the most ridiculous thing in public. Which is now, of course, why we do the podcast.
It sounds like you took public performance, more gracefully and with better heart than I did.
I really did take to it. I thought, if you can sing Love Me Tender and these guys, like, even though it's Korea and it's a completely different tonal chordal structure, they could tell that I was not singing it right. He was like, this guy cannot sing. We don't even know this song, but he cannot sing. It was so stupid.
Did you find you were there for a month, Rob?
I was in in there, yeah, about for 5 weeks. I turned up about a week early, so it was about 5 weeks in total. But yeah, it was a great experience. And
did you notice any changes to like your body or your like energy or your mind or anything?
Yeah, I did. When you sometimes when you do those things, you don't necessarily appreciate fully what's taken place.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I think the biggest appreciation of what happened, because in the ashram, as you know, often the food is very sattvic, so there's no food such as onions and garlic, and a lot of refined food. So you become quite clean. And I remember we were, the food wasn't actually bad, but the fellow Westerners that I met, there was only 3 of us out of 30 that were from the West. There was an Australian girl and an American girl. We were really missing Western food. So we left the ashram. We went straight to, what's the pizza place?
Pizza Hut?
Domino's? Domino's was popular at the time.
Pizza Corner?
Pizza Corner. Pizza Corner.
Yeah.
Well done. That's another plug. They'll be sending us pizzas now.
Yeah, from India.
I'll look up what their byline is.
So we went to Pizza Corner. We went to Pizza Corner and we had, there was garlic and onions on the pizza and all this kind of stimulating food. And we went back to the hotel and we were completely wired. None of us could sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we just weren't used to this stimulating food. We were just overstimulated. Right. So that was a real eye-opener in terms of how food could really strongly affect us. But also how, as we entered, Bangalore was pretty crazy then, and it's even more crazy now. The stimulus, the honking and the cows, the barking dogs, and then the truck and the fumes. So much stimulus, and it was like, I almost want to go straight back to the ashram.
That drove me crazy. It really drove me crazy in India when people would tell me, like, oh, garlic and onions are very stimulating. And they would, in front of you, drink a gallon of Mysore style coffee with like a pound of sugar in it. And then they would go, then it's like, look around, man, how stimulating this place is. And you're giving me shit about eating an onion. Look around. I'm just, I get so mad.
Paradise. Yeah.
So then you went to Mysore.
So I went to Mysore, yeah. So I'd heard, I was reading the book about Ashtanga, but also maybe before the book or around the time of the book that here in Nirvana, I'd heard about Ashtanga Yoga, and my only reference to it was that Madonna and Sting practiced it.
Yeah.
So I was like,
good at it. Yeah.
Must be good for you. Must be good for you.
Yeah.
You look at that.
So I knew of Ashtanga. I'd not practiced it. As I said, most of it was Iyengar. And then I had this obviously experience at the ashram was more kind of hatha yoga based. They only had, it was a bit like Shivananda. They had about maybe 30 or 35 postures, something like that, the core postures that we practiced in the ashram. So I was interested in Ashtanga. So we went to Mysore, and I decided that I had a choice really at the time. It was Pattabhi Jois or B.N.S Iyengar. And I leant towards B.N.S Iyengar. One, because I'd never write him a letter.
Co-students of Krishnamacharya, yeah.
Exactly. And also a guy I met in the house was saying he was a student of B.N.S and said, I'll take you to meet him. So it was kind of easy. So it was the easy kind of path into it at the time.
You don't suppose that was Andrew Epler? That wasn't your housemate, was it?
No.
Okay. He's a famous Iyengar devotee.
Yeah, he does the Mysore traditions, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Not the same guy. All right. So what was he like? You were there at the giant Mohan Palace. Excuse me, Jagan Mohan Palace. I'm sorry.
It was next door. So there's a Jagan Mohan Palace where the Krishnamacharya used to teach, and then there's some mutt which I can't remember the name fully, and I can't pronounce properly.
A mutt being a school in India or a center.
Yeah, it was a temple and a school. Yeah, mutt. Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Just for Martha in Florida, who is our only listener, she sometimes doesn't understand these references. We try and fill her in.
Yeah, there was a temple downstairs and some kind of temple school, and then B.N.S Iyengar taught upstairs. Beautiful old building, absolutely stunning. And so in the big hall, all the locals would practice. They would huff and puff away in there, and as you know, when you see the local people, the Mysoreans practice Ashtanga, it looks nothing like a Western person's practice, is it?
It's really true. Yeah.
And it's great in many ways. It's because there's absolutely no adherence to alignment. They just do what they can do, and they move from a posture to the next and
flop about. Yeah.
Exactly.
Have a much better time of it.
Probably. And then we've segregated in the back portion, us Westerners. There's 3 or 4 of us. And so
whites in the back.
It was it was a little bit that way. And B.N.S Iyengar, he didn't give a lot of adjustments. It was kind of like, you do this and this and this. And the friend that I met, he was quite adept. He was doing intermediate at the time, so he kind of would give me pointers. And there was a couple other people. It was about 4 of us, I think. And we just kind of plodded our way through the practice each day. And then you guys must know Mark Yo.
Yeah, you're from Malaysia.
Yeah.
We've mentioned him on the show many times because he was the figure of the Ashtanga Yoga god in our age group.
Okay.
He's the most advanced person practicing in the shala for a long time.
I'd ever seen.
Yes,
still the most advanced I've seen in person.
Yeah. Okay.
I've heard about people, but yeah.
Okay.
Witness.
He was one of my fellow housemates that trip.
Oh, cool.
Oh. And so I was different. He was obviously practicing with Pattabhi Jois at the time, and he was quite experienced. Obviously, he knew much more than I did. And
I can't imagine how you'd even have time to talk to him because he's so busy doing asanas all day long.
Pretty much. Well, he had time. He had time to teach me, so he would give me an extra lesson in the afternoon sometimes, like some hip openers, because I was stiff as a board.
Right.
He would absolutely kill me. He would absolutely kill me doing these different things. Absolute agony.
That's amazing.
Brilliant.
So I got a few pointers from him. And yeah, just kind of plodded along. But B.N.S Iyengar was nice. He had a certain energy about him. Had a few good stories. He would relate once in a while. One of my favorite stories or pieces of advice that he ever gave me was that you're like this, Russell, I'm sure. That you should not eat a banana. Do not eat banana.
Don't eat banana.
Good God.
And his reasons were that in the laboratory he'd done experiments. Okay, and that he tried to burn this banana. He put the piece of banana in a test tube, and he put the Bunsen burner, burned away, and it would not break down. He could not destroy the banana, and therefore
the stomach agony wouldn't be able to either, would it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other reason, and I excuse this for some of the audience, especially Martha in
Florida.
Where's Martha?
Yeah.
Florida.
Tallahassee. Yeah.
He said don't eat it because it's shaped like the male organ.
Yes.
And if you therefore eat it, it will increase your libido.
Yeah, that's what we discovered. Yeah.
Russell loves bananas.
Actually, Harmony's been encouraging me to eat more bananas. So I'm going to try to eat one a day now.
That's so funny. I love it.
But yeah, he was a sweet guy. So I spent I was about 2 months with him that trip, and then I traveled around India for a while for the rest of that time of my first visit to India.
Lovely. And so did Mark suggest going to the Bitabi Jois, or did you say that he suggested that you go to Australia and do a bodywork course? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, he did. So I was chatting him. I knew after India I was going to go to Thailand, and I was still kind of not sure what I was doing. I knew that I obviously started this path on wanting to be a yoga teacher, and I knew it was quite a long path. I was still having some back issues. And so some of the driving force to deepen my practice was really to understand my own body and be out of pain. More selfish reasons rather than just teaching and giving. It was really, I was trying to fix my body in many ways. And he told me about this course in Sydney, in Australia, that he was thinking about doing. It was a year-long course. And so I looked in, I thought, actually, this sounds really good. I think this might be something I want to do. I learned more about the body. I learned some new skills. It would probably help my teaching as well. And so I signed up. He never did. I never saw him in Australia. He never showed up. But I went myself, and it was a great experience. It was a really comprehensive course. So I learned sports injury therapies. Yeah. There was a rolfer there, so we had 10 weeks with a rolfer. We did some aromatherapy. We did some nutrition, some biomechanics, reflexology, lots of different modalities. And yeah, just had a great time. I really, really enjoyed it. Loved Australia.
Incredible.
Sydney was fantastic. Have you guys been to Sydney?
I've been. I taught in Bondi Beach at the new that new fangled Jois yoga. I taught there for a month
2010.
or two.
Okay.
Maybe 6 weeks. I was Manju was there at the same time as me, and Brett Porzio. We taught together. Andrew Hillam set the whole thing up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sydney's great. Bondi's lovely.
Yeah, Bondi was a fun town. It was just it was kind of a bizarre kind of mixture of a hippie uni town with, like people would leave their furniture out because they had stayed for a year and they were done. So they just put their furniture out on the front lawn.
Bondi area.
Bondi, yeah. And then I would walk to work at 3-4 in the morning to do a practice, and the whole area was like littered with 6-foot giant vampire bats. And I was just like, this is the most fucking terrifying beach resort I've ever been to.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never saw those.
Yeah, there were it was really like, I just felt like they would follow me, and from tree to tree, like I'd be walking along and they just like keep swooping in and following with me, and I thought they're just gonna fucking take me off someday back to their lair.
What year were you there?
So I got that call. I just got to San Francisco, so it must have been 2010, 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. I remember seeing Eileen Hall on the street, and I ducked her because I was so terrified of her. And I thought, because I was there replacing her because she had just been fired from Jois Yoga, for being a bit rough with some of the customers, which is how you run a Mysore room, obviously. And she had been a bit rough. And so they called me in as a sub, and I saw her on the street, and I totally ducked. I was fucking terrified. And I just totally ducked. I was like, I just hid from her. Yeah.
Eileen's fantastic. I practiced with old school yoga moves in I can't remember the suburb now, but when I was there, I really liked Eileen. She's a great character.
Did you practice with her when you were taking the course?
Yes. Yeah. So I was there end of 99 and then through 2000, the Olympics there that year as well.
Yeah.
So that was quite fun. But yeah, I studied with her. There was another guy whose surname I can't remember, Paul, who used to teach as well. And then Mark Roberts was there.
I was going to ask if Mark Roberts was there at the same time. Yeah, but not Paul Dallahan or
Paul's in Thailand.
Different Paul.
Yeah, different Paul.
Yeah, okay.
Mark Roberts. Mark Roberts, I just missed it. So I think his first trip to Mysore was like just before mine.
Yeah.
In 99. And I think we stayed in the same house, and we just missed each other, and then we met in Australia that time. And so I've seen him a few times over the years, but they had great teachers at Yoga Moves with Eileen.
Yeah, she's classic.
I was standing in the Shala in Mysore, and Mark was I was going to ask Sharath something, I don't know, about whatever, and Mark was standing right in front of me, kind of in line, and he asked Sharath, he said, Sharath, Eileen is giving me such and such postures, and she has me doing like halfway through third. Is that okay? And he said, yeah, no problem. And I just remember like the bottom of my soul died. I was like, oh, we're both doing like 1 or 2 postures of third, and now you're doing fucking half a third, and that's going to take me like another 5 years of my life. And you just, how can I? Oh. So I tried to steal postures after that, and I was caught, and I was in the naughty room. So no, you don't get to do the same postures as Mark. It's like, no. Shit.
So after your bodywork course in Sydney, then where did you go? What did you do?
I thought about staying in Australia. Then I decided, actually, I was completely broke at that time.
Yeah.
So then I had to go back to the UK and work for a little bit. And I was teaching back in the UK and doing some, massage and sports injury work for about a year. And, when I left India the first time, after the first trip, towards the end, I knew that if I stayed any longer, I was going to murder someone.
Yeah.
You see that with the people that stay, like your friend Saskia, with Randy Uncle, Kevin,
crazy.
Olaf, they all lost their fucking minds.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I would never. As soon as I got on the plane in '99, it was like, I could breathe again. It was like a sense of relief.
Yeah.
And I swore I would never go back again. I would never go back to that country, never again. But after, it was about a year and a half later, I started missing it. I was like, I'm missing India. Why am I missing India? This is very unusual. I hated it. And
I want to go do it again.
Started playing my mind. And so I decided that, I had to go back. I didn't know enough. I need to learn more. I'm going to go back to Mysore. I'm going to stay in Mysore until I've learned,
everything there is to know.
6 series, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I remember I went back and I remember landing in Chennai because I don't think there was any flights to Bangalore, very few to Bangalore at that time. This is in 2002. Yeah. And I landed in the middle of the night and I took a taxi. And the taxi driver had been asleep in the back seat. Yeah, I got in the back seat and it stunk of his body odor. And the seat was sticky and there was pollution. Yeah. And there was the cows and the dogs again.
You also smell badly to him, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes both ways.
Oh my God.
But it was funny. But all those smells, the pollution, everything, including the taxi driver, I took a deep breath in, and I was like. It was like a breath of fresh air. It wasn't a fresh air, but it was like a breath of fresh air. It was like coming home. Yeah. And I guess India it became that place to me. It was like a home from home. Yeah. And then I stayed a long time. I stayed the next 2 or 3 years. I stayed in pretty much in Mysore.
Right.
And you could afford to live there by just doing treatments on the children of the students.
The Mysore students.
I had, I don't really, my grandfather was a very smart man, very, very smart man. He becomes smarter by the day, the different things he did. But in terms of his foresight, so he bought some land and property for my brother and I when I wasn't even born actually when he bought it. And so I had a little bit of income, like rental income coming in.
Oh my God!
Which I know I could live, fairly easily in Mysore. Yeah.
See,
especially back in the day.
Yeah. Farmer kids in the United States don't have that kind of. Yeah, that's really.
You got to think ahead for the future generation,
right? Yeah. That's what I was talking about. That's really.
That's great.
They're just
so I was.
At most, they invest into a NASCAR, and that's very little foresight. Wow.
So I was lucky that I was in a position to do that. So it enabled me to practice yoga and do a bit of self-study. Then, so when I went back the second time, I studied with Pattabhi Jois. In the old Shala, so I was quite pleased that I always had the opportunity to study in the old Shala now, of course.
Yeah, the Lakshmipuram Shala.
Lakshmipuram, and then you was able to study with him in Gokulam. Wow, yeah.
Then when they moved so I was there that year. I think it was 2002. They had the inauguration for the old Shala, which is
right.
Rasta was the new Shala, and then they moved. They finished, I think, about August that year, didn't they? And then they started again in January the following year in 2000.
That's right. And I was there. My first trip was the April of 2003, and it was you could tell it was sparkling brand new.
Yeah. So I didn't want to make that. I was so used to just a small group of people. I didn't like the idea of being with now 50 or 60 or whatever it was at that time.
Yeah.
And so at that time, Sharath was teaching in Saraswati's old house.
In Gokulam.
In Gokulam. And he had a quite small group, maybe 12 to 20 people. 12 people, I think, could fit in the room, or just over 12, maybe 14 could fit in the room at one time. So it felt like a similar atmosphere. And even in the old Shala, I perhaps had more connection to Sharath. In terms of coming to adjust me and kind of guiding me. Pattabhi Jois generally ignored me, apart from the one time he dropped me on my head.
You two have that in common.
We do. That was
I think a lot of people do.
I ruined my neck.
Up?
He was doing back bends with me, and he had the idea that given my stature as a practitioner, I should be able to stand up by myself from the back bend with your arms crossed, head on the ground. And I knew a couple people like Maya Heiss who could stand up from that position.
I've never seen anyone do it, but I remember Maya.
And
crazy back.
He had the idea. He looked at me, and he thought, "Oh yeah, this one can do it." And I fucking hell couldn't do that. And I got about halfway up, and he said, yeah. And then he just like let go, and my head crashed on the ground. And David Swenson calls it the Bitabi Dribble. I dribbled on the ground, my head like a cantaloupe or a basketball. And I broke out laughing. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing. It was just ridiculous that he had just done this to me. And he picked me up and he glared at me. And I just looked at him as like, come on, man, that's your fault. And then he grinned, and it was really hilarious. And but my neck was never the same afterward. And Olaf went and did some chiropractor on me in the hallway, which is probably also a really bad idea.
Jungle medicine,
jungle kayamane. And but finally, your cousin fixed me.
A real chiropractor.
A real chiropractor fixed me. This is like 15, 20 years later. Your cousin gave me some neck stretches, exercises. He worked on me. He said, we can fix this. And it's fine. I can look up now without pain for the first time in 20 fucking years. Thank you, Pattabhi Jois.
Sorry.
Much energy and emotion tied to that head dribble. What happened to you?
Yeah, you dribbled? Do you have a little bit of a dribble?
No, I was stiff as a board, so I was only kind of starting. I hadn't really finished primary when I went there. I was really struggling, as we all do, or some of us do anyway. Maybe not you guys. Like with Marichasana D and Baddha, really struggling with those postures. My hips weren't very open, and I was right at the end of the queue. So back then it was probably maybe 50 people, maybe 60 people studying at the old Shala. And I was the last one in because I just turned up. And so I was the last one in the room that day. And I just did what I normally did, just went through all the primary doing postures, which I certainly couldn't do. And then he came along and decided he would backbend me, which I was not well equipped or didn't have the facility to do. And to be honest, I'd never done before. No one had ever done it.
Right.
And so I was like, and I'd heard stories about, I hadn't heard your story or people being dribbled or David Swenson being dribbled on the head. And I was absolutely petrified that he was going to kill me. So we dropped back a few times, arms across the chest.
Like the halfway one.
Yeah. Which I used to do back then.
Oh, dear.
And then we lowered all the way to the floor, and he said, come up. And I completely panicked. Yeah. Looked up, which obviously threw my center of gravity even further behind.
Look up, man. No.
Yeah. It's his first time.
He let go and then fell on top of me. and so we're both in a complete heap on the floor.
Holy shit.
He was not happy. He was not happy at all.
No.
Bad man.
So,
bad man.
I think that was the last time he touched me. That was the last time. And then Sharath took over.
Yeah.
He's like, this one belongs to you.
This one.
No.
Yeah, this one's dangerous.
But there was one guy that I can't remember his name now. And actually, even if I remembered his name, I wouldn't mention it. But he was practicing the shot at the time, and every day he would drop him on his head. Every day I would sit there, and I'm like, "What is going on? Why?" And he would. I could see him let the student go. And he would tell the student off. He would tell the guy could stand up.
Standing up by himself. Yes,
but he could stand up. He would drop him. I don't know what. I have no idea.
Just like with his arms crossed. Yeah, he was like, "You should be able to stand up by yourself." Yeah, it's a true thing. You should be able to. Yeah. She's very strong legs, you know.
These
very
are like horror stories for Mysore.
Yeah. Well, no one, you know, don't go to Mysore to practice with Bitabi Jois. That's our advice.
But it was self-predicted. I was completely fearful of it happening.
Yeah.
And I thought about it happening during the time, and it happened. So
yeah.
Talk about creating your own kind of future.
Yeah. Well, it's also pretty scary when it's your first time doing it.
Totally.
Before we go on, I wanted to ask you about your experience studying with Peter Sanson, because you said some really nice things, and that was kind of happening around the same time, I think. Yeah,
Peter I've known for many years. Peter was there that first trip I went in 1999, and to be honest, I don't remember him at all. But I remember him. He said to me a couple of years later that I remember you, and I thought you were going to die. Because he essentially was watching me waste away. You know what it's like when you go to Mysore, you go to India, maybe not so much nowadays, but certainly back then, you can lose a lot of weight, and I was not doing well. I was skinny as anything. I lost so much weight.
I was always so jealous of those people, because I would go to India and I had the exact opposite experience every time.
Okay, I know a few people like yourself that happens to.
Yeah. I was like, what?
It's funny, isn't it? It's so funny.
I think it has to do with your constitution, how well you handle carbs.
Yeah.
Maybe
how large your sweat glands
are. I think carbs make some people skinny, and they make other people not skinny.
Yeah. Totally. And so I used to go to a place called Did you ever go to Auntie's opposite?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Love spicy aunties.
I hired Auntie to cook out of my home. And so then I would have massive parties at my house, and
where was your house? Where was your house then? Because I remember someone doing this.
Oh fuck! It was up the street from the
chaiwala.
The chaiwala. There was a kind of poor people's section of Gokulam that had a big marble opening that they had built for the poor, which was bizarre. And so I was up the street from that, across from a park, in Nick Evans's place that he had, and I'd have Auntie cook
that way. Okay.
And then I'd have Auntie cook, and I'd have people come over, and I think people would pay, pay
the same amount,
20, 30 rupees, but you didn't have to go all the way in town.
Okay,
you come to one of those. Yeah.
No, I wasn't particularly. I was quite unsociable in many ways in that time.
I can
around
see
that time, especially in 2003, I became very unsociable. I locked myself away a little bit, and so those kind of things. After being there, especially when the more that you're there, and I'm sure you guys can appreciate having spent a lot of time there. It's such a transient community. People there for a month, and they go away, and then they come back, and new people come in. And when I lived there pretty much kind of 3 years straight, a couple of breaks of a month or two that I didn't. And so I was really like,
you don't want to waste your energy and time.
It's just the same questions and same conversation again and again. Not the bad people at all, really nice people, but I couldn't be around it. It was too much for me at that time.
Yeah.
It's so funny, because that's actually the premise of our podcast. Is we sit down, we ask the same questions, and ask the same things about people.
We have a different conversation every time,
right? But it's a very transient community that we have here on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I remember
also living in Lakshmipuram, I think, at that time as well, right?
And the first, where was I the first time? The first time, I was in Lakshmipuram. I stayed in one of the Sankalp buildings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the second time when I was studying in the old Shala. And then when we came back, I was staying, where Saskia used to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I stayed in that house for a while, Govinda
Right.
Kai had rented it, but he wasn't there, so I rented it from him.
Yeah.
And then I lived in the opposite house. Do you remember Bay? Batea?
Yes.
Bay Batea.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was a friend of mine, so I stayed in that house for a while. And then I moved a little bit out more towards Brindavan Extension, a bit closer to where Olaf.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I lived out there near Olaf.
Oh, okay. But Peter sent.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, back to Peter Sense.
I just you brought up aunties as well, and I didn't want to lose that thread.
No, that's yeah.
Okay, good.
Going there.
So he saw me and aunties essentially dying, and then he the next trip I made, that was in 1999. Then in 2002 I went back. The next trip I made, he turned up, and I remember meeting this guy, and I thought this guy is really nice. This guy's really nice. He'd be there in the morning. He'd be chanting. He'd be waiting to go in. He didn't like to practice early. He always practiced at 5:30. He didn't like to practice at 4:30. And he wised up to the spot. You know, there's certain spots in the old Shala that were his preference, that were the best kind of best air, or the mat was, you know, not overlapping, whatever. And so he would sit next to me, and sometimes he let me go in first. And originally I thought, oh, he's a nice guy, let me go first, but actually he was letting me have a spot he didn't want. But anyway, he was always so friendly. He put his, you know, all right, mate, you know, how are you doing? You know, in a very lower voice, because obviously practicing the Shala, he put my hand on my knee, and he just felt like your best mate. You didn't actually know, you'd never met him, but he was your best mate.
That's
very,
Peter
very
to
friendly.
a T.
And then over the years, I've been fortunate enough to do some workshops with him in Barcelona a few times, and in London a few times, and then met him in Mysore many times over the years. But I was always blown away by his teaching in terms of how he could make you feel so special. You know, he could make you feel that you were the only person in the room, that he knew exactly what you were doing, exactly where you were at, exactly what you needed. And to this day, I still feel he's given me the best adjustment that I've ever had.
Wow.
And you know what it was? I was in Paschimottanasana, and I was bending forward, and he came around and stood just behind me, and he massaged my shoulders.
Oh.
And I just relaxed. You know, instead of holding all that tension, I just softened. I was like, what a great posture. What a great adjustment. Absolutely fantastic. So just a great character. And I just love his attitude towards the practice. The practice is there to serve us. We're not serving the practice. We're not following this dogma. He is totally into the long haul. He's always telling me, you know, how he does what he can, but it's a lifetime practice. He's seen so many people over the years, because he's one of the few practitioners that still goes back. He was just there now. He goes back every single year. Every single year he goes back. And so he's seen people come and go over the years. People come, get broken, get disillusioned with the practice, and disappear off. And so I like slow and steady, very kind of New Zealander kind of attitude, which I really appreciate.
When I met him in 2003, I had the fortune to become friends with him, and it became a thing to have tea in the morning at the Gokul chats with him. And it was really, there was a nice group of mates there with like Rolf and Peter and Nick Evans, and I felt like a little younger brother, little boy who got to hang out with the old dogs.
Our paths must have crossed them, because I know all those guys.
Right, and you probably did hang out with us at Gokul Chats. And Peter was having really bad back pain in 2003, and he would come over and do Rolfing with Mitchell Gold, and I was hearing about his story, and I was like, this is a guy who was doing 4th series in Mysore and now can barely do half a primary, and I was like, wow, this could be my future. You know, that's amazing.
He had some very bad injuries when he was a kid. So he had very severe injuries.
Working on the sheep farm.
Shearing sheep farm. I think it was, he had a skiing accident as well, water skiing accident, and when he really injured his back. And that's how, I think that's how he got into yoga. But maybe you can. I was trying to persuade him to do a video cast with me, and he was like, do not do them. He just flatly refused. He said, maybe try me again. if you can, try and get him onto
I would
your
love
podcast,
to.
Harmony.
Yeah,
Because,
maybe.
he's the
great.
nicest person on the planet. That's what I always say about Peter.
It's true.
He
think you're
really
right.
is.
Every time I see him, he's given me an invitation to come to New Zealand to shear sheep. And so I'm going to do it. Someday I'm going to go to New Zealand and I'm going to shear sheep. Wouldn't you like to shear a sheep, sweetie? Yes. We could shear a sheep together. I know it's your walk time. Maybe I should take her out. I don't know.
No,
This is the time for her walk. She knows it's walk time.
She needs to just chill out.
Well, maybe I'll just put her outside for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay,
maybe.
I'll go put her outside. You guys continue. We need to know all about your relationship to Tawari, which is Harmony's specialty. So I'm going to take her out in the backyard where you two can talk about Tawari.
Just let her run around.
Which is Harmony's favorite subject.
Awesome.
You're going to come back, right?
In a bit, yeah.
She really has you wrapped around her little finger.
Yeah, so do you, sweetie.
So how long did you live in Mysore for?
So I lived, so I spent about 3 months, so 2 months in 99, and then I went back for about 3 years in 2002 to about 2005. I stopped practicing Ashtanga after a while because I injured my knee with a motorbike, and kickstarting a motorbike, I tore my meniscus. And I just couldn't, I kept trying to practice again and again, and everything irritated my knee chronically. And I decided that I would just take a step back from it. And that's how I started to hear about Dr. Jag, who we were discussing earlier.
Dr. Jag.
And Saskia Vidula was the person who introduced me to her. But I heard of him before as well, but I'd never been to him. But she said, I'd go every afternoon, come and meet him. So I was kind of blown away by this guy, and so my focus shifted a little bit away from Ashtanga and more towards working in a clinical setting, studying or adding more skills to what I'd learned in Australia, the Australian College of Natural Therapies, and helping each day, but also starting to help or work with people with some weird and wonderful conditions. What I loved about Dr. Jag's clinic is he would have every single condition under the sun, all sorts of health problems, and he would be able to treat them. He wouldn't necessarily every case fix them, but there was something that he could do to help. And so I spent, good, just over 2 years with him.
You were like apprenticing.
I apprenticed, yes. I was there when he was there. I was there. Sometimes he would go away and I would stay in the clinic with the other people and help patients out. And then he would come back and I'd study more. It was a great experience.
And he was like an Ayurvedic doctor, right?
He's a bit of everything. His grandmother was, and I hopefully get the story right. His grandmother was a midwife. And so from a very young age, he was helping his grandmother. And she would, delivering babies and stuff, but she was also kind of a natural healer. I don't think she was classically Ayurvedically trained, but she had an Ayurvedic knowledge and also an understanding of medicinal plants in India. She also studied with Krishnamacharya. He tells of stories of him going with his grandmother and being in the room when he was very little and seeing Krishnamacharya teach when he was still in Mysore. But he was great. I learned a great deal from him. Yeah.
I remember he was quite popular with a certain group of people.
Yeah, he was not a fan of Ashtanga Yoga.
No.
Any Westerner come in with the back problem and knee problem, he would go, Ashtanga Yoga. and shake his head completely disapprovingly. And then the person would jump up and say, "No, I don't actually practice Ashtanga." And you go, "Oh, okay." But there was a, as we know, not that Ashtanga is bad, but if it's not properly applied, then it can lead to injuries. It's not the yoga's fault; it's the application of it, which is the problem half the time, or most of the time, really. And so we would get a lot of casualties from various shalas in Dr. Jag's clinic.
Yeah. And he really then, it must have inspired you to like go back to school and continue learning then.
Totally, yeah. I learned so much from him, which I will be eternally grateful for. But I felt towards the end that there was gaps missing in my knowledge. Like I knew, I could see lots of different conditions. I knew how to treat them, but I wanted to understand the physiology. I wanted to understand the biomechanics. I wanted to understand the body on a deeper level, which he didn't have the training of. So he knew how to treat the body, but he couldn't necessarily tell me it was this particular muscle, this particular bone, or this particular tissue. For some reason, I wanted that knowledge. I wanted a complete picture.
Yeah.
So I started looking into other courses. I looked at physiotherapy and osteopathy. I even looked at medicine and Chinese medicine. But when I looked at the prospectus of chiropractic, it ticked all the boxes. All the different subjects that I wanted to learn, I was going to learn in this particular course. So it wasn't that I was dying to become a chiropractor. It was more that the chiropractic training was going to fill in the missing gaps in my knowledge at that time. Right. So I left India and headed back to the UK and went to college in Bournemouth, which is in Dorset, which we were talking about earlier, Russell.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, cool. And then, so how long did you study to be a chiropractor for? You just lived there and went to school full time?
Yes. So I had to do I didn't have any chemistry or biology, which are prereqs. So I did a year, like crash course in those subjects, and then did 4 years of training at chiropractic college. So I graduated in 2010.
Wow. And then you came back to Mysore. Is that true?
No, then I was after chiropractic college. I'd been so much in my head. I'm sure you guys experience that sometimes when you're studying, when you're taking these extra courses. Totally. It's so mentally stimulating and perhaps sometimes a bit vata deranging that I just really wanted to get back into my practice and be still. And so I decided that I would go to Thailand. And I've been to Thailand. Actually, I don't know whether you remember this. I bumped into in Thailand in it was in 2005. Harmony.
Yeah.
When you were practicing, or I think you were assisting Paul Dallahan at the time.
Yeah, and I was at the Yoga Thailand Center with Paul. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was doing a fast with Hillary.
Yeah, down the coconut water charcoal fast.
Exactly. And that was
I remember now. Yes.
Yeah. That was
you were very skinny. You're with Bay, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So we did that, and that was end of my kind of 3-year stay in Mysore, pretty much. And we went to do this fast. Bay had done one before. Yeah. And
I totally remember you saying that too. You're getting rid of all the parasites from India.
I was honestly, I mean, fortunately, this is only audio, and so you can't. But people can still imagine this. You should have seen what came out of me. It was shocking.
Yeah, you had big worms, right?
Shocking.
I had so many parasites. It was honestly, it was
good
absolutely
God,
laden.
Yeah,
that seems like the kind of thing that would make you mad.
It does. It's funny because Bay at the time, she got me into these books on fasting, and she loved this story about how parasites, they have this little tooth. I don't know whether this is true or not, but she just told me a story. The parasite has this little tooth, and it can essentially hook into your intestine, and then it can just sit there, and essentially just gobble up the food. But at the same time, they almost tap into your.
To live.
It's tapped into your nervous system, right?
If I could just
tap into
hook
your
on the wall
exactly,
and have food shoveled into me, that'd be
exactly.
Live the next 10 years like that.
But it was fascinating because I went through. There was one particular day, maybe day 5. I've been shedding parasites, and I went through continuously. And then day 5, I was like, I'm going to die. I am going to die. And literally, I felt like a part of me did. And afterwards, I was reborn. And then I shedded some more parasites. And I'm convinced to this day that those parasites were like hardwired into my system, and that something did die. And then
you were sharing consciousness with a symbiote.
I mean, it's funny to think about it.
Yeah,
it's absolutely insane to think about, but I really do believe that.
Wow.
God,
that's incredible.
Wow.
So I felt.
How long was the fast again? Was it a 10-day fast? I'm trying to remember how long her fasts were.
it was 10 or 7 days. I can't remember which, but I felt so much better afterwards. But I was skinny. I guess I bumped into you kind of towards the end of it.
Yeah.
Super, super skinny. And the best thing, one of the best things, apart from, getting rid of my unwanted traveler friends, was the fact that I got rid of my tinnitus. I had chronic tinnitus for many, many years, and my tinnitus completely disappeared.
No.
It was awesome. And I'll tell you a story. So I went back to the UK after this, and this was kind of towards September time, and it was starting to get cold. And I was trying to follow the raw diet that Hillary recommended, and I was absolutely frozen.
Yeah,
it was
freezing.
So cold.
You do get cold on that.
And then we were trying to renovate a barn on the farm, and I was completely weak. I was absolutely useless. My brother was doing all the work. I was just sat in a heap, just trying to lift. I'd pass him the hammer or something. I couldn't lift anything. I was just so weak and skinny because I'd been on this fast, completely wasted away.
That's it. Do yoga, see the world, travel, learn all these ancient tantric principles. Really get to know the true self. Do you need a hammer? I can just barely lift this hammer. Yeah, go on.
It was totally like that. So I thought, well, I can't follow this raw diet anymore. I cannot do it. I'm literally dying. So I thought I'd have some miso soup. So I had miso soup, and it was the first warm thing I'd had for years or months.
Oh my God.
And absolutely delicious. And I thought, it was so good. I'd have another bowl. Had another bowl.
This.
Yeah.
And that day my tinnitus came back, and I've never got rid of it since.
Oh my fucking hell, man. That's not a happy ending to a story.
No, it wasn't. So I'm sure it's, and then they talk, not that they understand fully why tinnitus happens. Some theories around neck issues, other issues are around minerals and metabolites and electrolytes in the system. So I'm pretty sure it was some kind of fluid change, taking that much sodium in the miso kind of threw things off.
So interesting.
But I've done fast since then, and it's never gone back.
No,
it's never gone away.
Never gone away.
You got to go back to Hillary.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I digress completely. I do apologize.
That's amazing, though. That's really fascinating.
These digressions are why we have people on the show.
So I went back after chiropractic college. I wanted to go back, and I wanted to do another fast. So I went and did another fast, and it wasn't quite as dramatic. I didn't get rid of my miso, so I didn't get rid of my tinnitus. And I started. I was learning yoga there, and I went to just studying yoga, just immersing myself back into my practice. Walking. I had this amazing little hut. Amazing little hut up on the hill. I could look down the sea, just hot at the time, just beautiful food. I'd walk around naked and just meditate, and I was just like in the forest kind of thing. Just fantastic.
This is in Thailand.
This is in Thailand. This is in Cobain.
Did you paint yourself in the ash to keep yourself warm?
No, it's warm in Thailand.
Because the ash is warming. You understand? It's very insulating.
Thailand's so nice. So you just lived like a sadhu on Cobain.
Kind of, yeah.
Did you say that you were with Babe Berte?
No, this is a different time.
Not as in the item.
No. Different time.
So were you attracting a lot of females walking nude in the?
No one could see me. Actually, I got the idea from there was another English girl just on the hut above, and she would walk around naked, and she apologized. Sometimes you might see me naked. Please excuse me. Then she left. And then I thought I should take up this ritual that she started.
Yeah, right.
It's very
That's
liberating.
The first thing we think of.
I should take up this ritual.
Yeah, I think I'll go naked because we need a nudie.
Yeah.
And so then what happened after that?
So I was there for about I was there about 6-7 months, and after about 4 or 5 months, I did some pranayama.
Like just on your own?
No, I went to a class, and I'd studied pranayama with B.N.S many years ago. And I'd kind of liked the practice, but I'd never really got into it. Asana and meditation was still my kind of main thing. Yeah. And I took this pranayama class, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. There's something to this, but how this teacher is teaching is horrible. This is not correct.
Right.
And it wasn't, this is not, I shouldn't say that really. It's not a slur to the teacher. It was more, this practice is so powerful. I need to find a master. I just instinctively knew I had to find a master in it. So I'm like, where do I go?
Was this fellow going a bit too deep?
No, it was just too shallow, and we were all doing the same thing. And I was like, well, we should be doing this. I should be doing something different, I think, than this person. I just instinctively knew it.
Right.
Not that I knew why or anything else about it, but I just knew that I had to find a real master.
Yeah.
And so I was scratching my head what to do. And then suddenly I remembered Paul Dallahan, who we've already mentioned, Koh Samui. And I remembered back in the day when, around 2003, 4, 5, he was coming to Mysore, but then he would disappear off sometimes, secretly, to another teacher who he told me about. And he was telling me about how he used to get him to drink milk and ghee and these different practices, and learning pranayama. And I meant, this guy, maybe this is the person that I should study with. So I contacted Paul, and he said, gave me his name. It was Sri Opi Tiwari Ji. He said he didn't teach much now, but if you go there and show willing, who knows? I thought, well, let's go and show willing, and we turn up. So a couple of months later, I just went. I booked myself into Clive just in
Lonavala.
In Lonavala, in India, yes. So beautiful little ashram. And just signed up for, like, they do different kind of rejuvenation kind of programs, an Ayurveda or naturopathy program. It wasn't a specific course with Tiwari, but I hoped that I would wander around the campus and one day I'd bump into this man, or I could get an audience from him. Or even actually at the time, I just thought maybe I would be able to learn from his students. Maybe one of his students could teach me something, and that would lead to the path I wanted to. So after about 4 or 5 days, I wasn't very satisfied with what I'd been taught pranayama wise. I knew something was still missing. And so I went to the office and I said, can I speak to Tiwari, please? And she said, okay, yeah, no problem. So they led me into the office. And it was like, this isn't Tiwari, and it was his son. It was Subodh. I went to the wrong office.
Subodh,
And I said, I was sorry. I'm so sorry. I was trying to find your father. And he said, oh, no problem. And he called him up in his office. He said, oh, yeah, come down. So I went down straight away to Tiwari's office, knocked on the door, and said, oh, hi, I'd really like to learn some pranayama with you. An old friend of mine, Paul Dallahan, he's just, Paul, he's my student. Very, very happy. And then he started talking about Paul. And he said, I just really want to learn pranayama. I really want to learn. Is there anything you can teach me? Just thinking he might give me, 2 minutes of his time. And he kind of looked at me up and down. And then he said, look, I am here now. Next 10 days. If you want to stay, I will teach you something. I can meet you in the morning and I will teach you something. And I was like, that'd be fantastic. So fantastic. So the next week or 10 days, I can't remember exactly how long it was now, he would meet me each morning and he would slowly build my practice. And I knew that this is my teacher. This is my, and as I talk about it now, every time I even mention his name, I get goosebumps. Sometimes I start crying because he's just been such a wonderful human being. But he's also just such a knowledgeable teacher, and he's guided me so well over the years. I'm extremely grateful that our paths have crossed.
You wrote here that you usually see him 3 to 4 times a year, and you have done for the last 10 years.
Yeah, so this was in 2011. I met him for the first time, and then because back then, after Thailand and that trip, I started spending more time in India again, and then I moved back to Mysore from about 2014 to 2019.
Yeah, wow.
So Mysore was it wasn't particularly easy. It was still about 10-hour round trip, but I would go every few months just for a couple of days, just to get my pulse checked. Tiwari would check your pulse and see how in balance you were, and to see if you've been practicing or not. Get a little bit of guidance, and off I trot again, and be very content in what I needed. I felt that just that, 1 or 2 days with him would allow me to practice another 4 or 5 months or whatever it was before I would see him again.
That's so terrifying, because I can't imagine getting my pulse taken and being told that there's too much hot sauce in my diet. I would just end it, really. I would just commit, seppuku out of honor.
Yeah, it's always amazing, such an amazing teacher, and so he just knows things right away about you.
You're taking incredible. Hot sauce, yeah? I said, I'm taking hot sauce to RG. You must stop. And I'm like, oh no.
When he was staying in Thailand and I was living there too, and he would come and teach retreats, and do like 2-week retreats and different trainings there. Everyone was like making chai in the afternoon, because he always likes to take afternoon chai. And so one day someone says, oh, it's Harmony's turn to cook the chai. On a previous podcast, we talked about how much I love cooking, which is like not at all. And I was like, I don't want to make the chai. I just want to like sit and like
take
take satsang with Tawari. I don't want to make
someone else serve her is what she prefers.
But I like put on the happy face. Oh yeah, good. I'll make the chai. And I made the lemongrass chai. Just everything the way that he likes, and brought it out and served everyone the chai. And then Tawari he drank some of it. He drank some more, and then he said, this is very good, but I can tell there was a little I forget the exact word he said, something like
nervous tension.
No, it was such a good word. It was like you felt compelled to make this. Like it wasn't made out of like compulsion. Yeah, like it wasn't made out of the goodness of your heart. It was made because you felt you had to.
Yeah.
And I was like, good. No, it wasn't. He's just laughing, and he's like, yeah, I can taste it. It's in there. Yeah.
When did you first meet Dwight?
I first met him in 2004. So
Nice.
That was like one of my main reasons for going to Thailand. I mean, I was also hired to run the retreat center and to teach when Paul was in Mysore, and to, run some retreats and to help on his teacher trainings. But when I had met Paul in 2004, he had shown me sort of the beginning of a pranayama practice, because I also was like, I really want to learn pranayama. I want to learn from a teacher. And so Paul guided me in the beginning of the practice. And then he said, you should come to Yoga Thailand and learn from Tawari. And I was like, yes. And also Stephen Thomas,
yeah.
He was in Mysore that same time, and he had learned from Tawari in Thailand as well. And so he had said, oh yeah, you got to go meet Tawari. And so that was like what really like brought me there, was this desire to meet Tawari and to really learn from this teacher who was like, a real guru, a real teacher of pranayama. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And then it just kind of carried on from there. We hosted him at our school, our yoga school in Victoria, twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really nice. So.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but it's been a while, because I haven't been back to India for quite a while. And of course, once you have kids, it's more difficult to travel and get there. And also, especially when I had my son in Mysore, it was just too much. It was too big a trip, and the risks are too high if you leave the bubble, of getting sick. And when you have like a 2-year-old with you, you're like, I can't take that risk right now.
For sure.
Yeah. But we would still connect in different ways. So
nice. Very nice.
Yeah. It's been nice actually with the pandemic. He's been teaching some courses online. Through the Kabayadam. So it's been nice to be able to see him online at least, and connect that way the last little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've missed it. This is the longest period I've not seen him now since I first met him. With the pandemic. But actually, I'm really excited. On Monday we go back to India, and I wrote him a few weeks ago and said, "Oh, can I come and see you?" And he said he'd be in Rishikesh. He's so sweet. He's so generous with his time. He's obviously got so much he can do. He's like, "Oh yes, you're most welcome. Please come." And so we're meeting him next week. So I'm so excited to see him again.
So
So
nice. Yeah, I saw his house in Rishikesh. We were there too.
Oh, fabulous. Yes, a nice place.
Lovely. Yeah.
He's very happy when he's there. He's very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Reading through the bio and the things that you've sent us, it's what's a real thread through all of it is your dedication to learning. And it's really like watching a doctor who goes back for a residency or goes back for a fellowship and goes back to study something else. It's like, and then 25 years goes by and you've just been studying and learning the whole time. It's really impressive to see, like, there's this whole piece here about the 3 years that you apprenticed with Dr. Jag in Mysore.
We talked about that.
Oh, you already talked about that. It's just phenomenal. Like how much you've done and studied.
It's been a lot. I feel like I've been really, 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 there's a lot of reallys, but really lucky in terms of the people who I've come across in my lifetime. I feel like I've come across, amazing teachers with amazing knowledge and who have been kind of up here in terms of what they can do. So, for example, Dr. Jag, the knowledge that he had. I not mentioned my chiropractic mentor, Dr. Ian Rossborough, who I've gone to see many times in Australia. His knowledge is again up here. Twari G. There was Dr. Ed at the Australian college that I studied with. So I feel like I've always been inspired by great people, and always had a target to. So I've never been able to, or never felt the need to rest on my laurels, because I could see that I needed to get much further. If I wanted to achieve what they achieved, there was lots more to do. So I guess that's been an inspiration to keep studying. I do enjoy learning. I guess especially in the last couple of years, especially since we left India and got a bit stuck in terms of, we were supposed to move to Australia and things didn't work out there. I haven't learned so much from people, a little bit, to be honest, actually. It's more been studying. It's more like reading research papers and learning other areas of health in the human body, which I perhaps wasn't exposed to before. So I do enjoy learning. I do appreciate that. And I mean, to be honest, I love just getting on my mat every day and learning again. There's always something new to discover on the mat each day, which is a great beauty of consistent practice, I think.
Yeah.
Did you talk about his knee injury? Did you
We didn't
probe
go
that?
into it, no.
Did you? It was interesting.
That's what took you to Dr. Jag, though.
But you asked him in the bio, what broke him and what changed his idea about practice.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting answer.
Yeah. So this was in early 2003. I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was really trying to, I was thinking that I need to at least complete primary series and maybe, get well way through intermediate series before, I should be teaching Ashtanga properly, or, get authorized as you do then or did then and do now. And I was really into my practice. It was just, I guess you guys maybe had the same experience, when you go to Mysore, it's literally go and practice, then you go home and you relax, or you sit by the pool and you do absolutely nothing, preparing yourself for the next day of practice. Everything else puts to one side. So my kind of life was kind of like that. And then I injured my knee. So I wanted to buy a little scooter because I knew I was living there and I didn't want to rent a scooter all the time. And I went to buy a scooter and this guy said, "Oh, actually, my friend's got a motorbike for sale."
Oh,
I thought, let's have a look. And it was this beautiful golden motorbike.
Yeah.
It was called the Enticer. It was a
Yamaha
Enticer.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Actually, Paul Dallahan bought it off me a few years later.
Yeah, he had his Enticer. That's right.
Exactly. That was mine. So I got it, and it was really designed for an Indian individual or an Asian individual with small feet. And I've got massive feet. I've got size. It's American 13. Which that bike does enormous. Not suit. Yeah. It's quite big. It's quite. I know people do have bigger feet, but I find it quite
imagine how uncomfortable that is for your wife as well. That's a shame.
Oh my god.
Moving on.
Well, she has to, the work that she has to do to find you footwear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah, it's just such a hardship.
So I had this motorbike, and it had a kickstart, no electric start, and I kickstarted one day, and as I brought my foot down, my heel hit the exhaust pipe. A taller foot would have just slid by, and it just jammed my knee and tore my meniscus. And so it just changed my practice overnight. So I just went from being able to do lots of things and pretty much going towards, just not quite standing up for back bends, but doing all of primary series. I'm just waiting to stand up, and I was kind of close, I guess, at that time, to barely be able to do anything.
Right.
And I think that the thing that perplexed me most was the fact that the practice, not only couldn't I do the practice, which was annoying, of course, as you can appreciate, but the practice just irritated it.
Right. Yeah.
And I tell this story many times in terms of, I was doing full primary, and so I thought I'd just do less. So I just started cutting postures. One day after the next, I started cutting postures again and again and again. And then I was talking to Sharath. I said, what should I do? I just cut that posture out as well. I was just cutting them. And then in the end, I stood on my mat one day, and I'd cut every posture out apart from Sun Salute A.
Good.
That's all I had left. And so I did Sun Salute A, and my knees still hurt. And I thought, well, what's
left?
What's left?
It was just burning. There's absolutely burning. And practicing asana is one thing, but when you can't walk, when you can't go up a step without wincing, or without like holding onto something, or without coming back with your knees irritated, then it's like something I'm not doing right here, because I had this tremendous belief even back then, even 20 years ago, that yoga could fix everything. Maybe it can't fix everything, but I believe it could at that time, and I still largely that it can. And so I thought there's something wrong either with my application or with the system,
right?
With the Ashtanga. And so I guess that led me to Dr. Jag and learning more about the body. But it also, when I went to the clinic at Dr. Jag's, I was seeing all these patients that could barely move, really bad disc problems, sciatic problems, people in wheelchairs, people paralyzed, people with polio, people with all sorts of different conditions. And I was like, well, if I was going to apply the Ashtanga system to them, if I was going to apply primary system, there's nothing they can do. They can't actually do Sun Salute A. They can't actually stand up. Right. So there had to be something before that. There had to be some kind of therapy, movement therapy that they did initially, which then might lead them perhaps to more Ashtanga-based work or Sun Salutes or standing poses. But there had to be something before that. And Dr. Jag, he was a bit of a master at that in terms of developing movements for certain conditions, which opened my eyes up to therapeutic movement and helped me a great deal in understanding how I can start working with my body again in a different way to create healing.
It's so fascinating to me, because I do sympathize with the plight of this practitioner, and it's a kind of practitioner that you mentioned who is addicted to practice and is addicted to an orthodoxy of practice for whatever reason, and perhaps they're just super hyper focused on achievement, and they have a particular ambition towards 6 series, or maybe at least finishing 3rd and getting a certification, and they have to practice even if the way that they are practicing is fundamentally incorrect for their particular physiological pattern. And they're going to continue doing it wrong until they're just in their bodies falling apart. And that happened, I think, to me as well. And I had to really sit down with a therapist and say, look, this is not working. And you have to do this a completely different way if you're going to walk again, or, live without pain is what I mean. Can you talk more about that, about how often you saw that? You saw Ashtanga practitioners coming to you who were just so thick-headed, they just couldn't wrap their head around doing it differently.
I did all the time. And I guess the thing that intrigues me most around it was that they always had the belief that they couldn't let their teacher down.
Right.
And it's not the teacher. And I've heard other stories from other people. And a good friend of mine, Rafa, was talking about this the other day. We have a men's group, and Rafa was talking about this. And he's Rafa, I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning this, that he's had a lot of back problems, and he's really struggled at times, and he's had some back operations. And Sharath always said to him, just do whatever you can do. Just do whatever you can do. Even if you come to into the Charlotte and you just sit there, or you just do any movement you can do, just do it. Whereas so many more people have had the attitude that, oh, I have to keep practicing because I let my teacher down, or I'm not allowed to do that. I can't change that. This is the system. And I was like, this is not yoga, first of all, and this is not what they're saying. I don't know where the miscommunication comes in sometimes, or the misunderstanding with many practitioners. They really get caught in this dogma that it has to be this step by step, and nothing can change, and you're in pain, and that's part of your process. And it's an opening. I just, recently, it was actually last year, I had a guy who I helped in Mysore a few years ago, fell from a motorbike, who was practicing Ashtanga at the time. And then he moved to a different country. He was practicing with a very well-known teacher. And he had all these shoulder issues, had developed this really bad shoulder condition. And his teacher said, it's just an opening. It's just an opening. Just keep practicing. Just keep practicing.
We've heard that 1,000 times.
And then when he started to doubt it, when this patient of mine started to doubt the teacher said, you're weak in your mind. That's the problem. You've got weakness in your mind.
I've heard that once or twice.
And so it just got to a point where he was just in so much pain and just so fed up. He went for a scan. He'd completely stuffed his shoulder up. He had a labral tear, he had bursitis, he had rotator cuff tears, bicipital tendonitis, you name it, his shoulder had it. And I just thought
that's just stupidity to tell someone like that to work through it.
It's just, I guess, everything comes down to ignorance, whether you're a student pushing yourself through a physical pain, or a teacher telling the student to push yourself through physical pain. Comes down to ignorance, which is a rude word in some ways. But I always remember, I'm sure you guys have ever done Vipassana meditation. Goenka Ji, often when in the video discourse, he talks about, I can't remember the exact situation he talks about, but someone comes along and they're angry at you, and they start to give you trouble, and then with the practice, you slowly start to realize, they are ignorant. Eventually, they don't understand. They don't fully understand, and you don't need to get involved in that. You can step back from it, because you understand it. But ignorance is a terrible thing, and we're all ignorant to a certain extent, aren't we? Of course.
For sure. I mean, it's the first klesha, vidya, right? The ignorance, and out of ignorance, out of avidya, this confusion about what's real and what's not real, and what really matters and what's true and what's eternal and what's not, right? Comes all the other kleshas, which is like ego and our personalities and our likes and our dislikes, and clinging to life and fear of death. So it's the main thing that we're all suffering from on one level or another, right? And that's always the interesting thing for me with yoga is like, we know things that we don't know. We know things that we know, but we don't know what we don't know. And we have these blind spots, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh yeah, I know all there is to know, but no, we don't. And then all of a sudden you have those aha moments of like, oh, you're faced with it. Like, oh, I really misjudged that, or I really didn't see that,
Totally.
It's amazing. I mean, I think that's the whole magic of the yoga, is that they would say in the Yoga Sutras, the unveiling of the light around the heart or something, the light, the dawning of the light of knowledge, I think is really stepping into that space of seeing your blind spots, seeing all those places where that ignorance is still really strong.
Yeah, it's great, the yoga for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we learn so much, as you mentioned, that like the sutras, we get insights, and from the asana, the pranayama, the meditation, all these different things. There's so much to learn, and so much opening your eyes to the world and yourself that has to be worked through. I think if just to go back to that point in terms of what I've seen before, I think the one of the things I've seen so often is the identity. I am an Ashtangi.
Right.
I did a little short video cast with Eddie Stern. I know you did a podcast with him recently. I've not listened to it. I mean, I must do that. But Eddie summed it up really, really well in terms of that he would never call himself an Ashtangi. Right. Why would you want to identify with something so strongly in case, because if you do, if that no longer fits, what are you going to do? And I think that's what happens to so many people. I am practicing, I'm an Ashtangi. I can do second, third series, whatever it is, or even just half a primary. This is what I can do. And I can't go back from there. Backwards is devolution. Forwards is evolution. And it's a kind of misconception. But it's a hard one. It's a hard one. I think we've all gone through it, whether it be with our Ashtanga practice or our personal life or professional life in different ways, when something has to change. When I was no longer a golfer, I'm no longer a golfer, and I lost identity for many years until I became a chiropractor. Now I'm a chiropractor. I have some identity, but if I stop chiropractic, then what am I?
Totally. It's beautiful though. But again, that's like totally taking us back to the essence of yoga, right? Which is realizing that at the very heart of it, you are nothing, right? You're not a chiropractor. You're not an Ashtangi. You're not even like this body, like no body, no mind.
Your consciousness.
But that
you're
doesn't,
at least that.
Yeah, but that doesn't have like a label attached to it. It's infinite.
It's Paramatman is a pretty good one.
No, but like the experience of that.
I am Paramatman.
The tragedy of stripping away all of those things that we attach ourselves to, all those labels, all those identities, right? It's traumatic. It's like that little death that happens where you're like, oh my God.
Well, that's why you should walk around in the nude, is strip off as much as you can.
But then you might be attached to your body, and at the end of the day, you're no body either, right?
Exactly.
And I always find it so interesting because you think through the Ashtanga yoga practice that you're becoming less attached to your body because you're like, able to transcend pain thresholds, or you're able to, put your body into these crazy positions, and you're breaking those limiting beliefs in your mind about, oh, I can do this and I can't do this.
That sounds good.
Yeah. And I think to a certain extent, right? Sure. You're kind of transcending that attachment to your body a little bit, but then there's this really kind of sneaky, slippery thing that happens with our ego, right? Where we then get attached to this new body and this new way of being. And again, we're back in the same trap. Now we're attached to our new body and our new abilities and our new way of being. And all you have to do is start losing those, like you're saying, right? And then you're, at Surya Namaskar, and you can't even do that. And you're like, well, what's left?
What am I?
What am I now? And you realize like how attached to your abilities and your body you became, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you say, and it's not linear. Like it's always this sort of unfolding. And it's also like a spider web of possibilities. And I think for Westerners, it's so hard because we see progress and we see development and advancement in a very linear fashion. Like, right? We're just programmed that way. And it's not like that. It's like a flower, like opening, it's.
Absolutely. I was chatting to a patient the other day, and who's having back issues for many years. And I guess she was frustrated at the times that, she felt like she's improving and then she regressed. Felt like she's improving and then she regressed. And I said, this is the pattern that you will probably follow, because the problems that you have are so severe. It's not going to be just like getting better. Some days you'll feel great, and those are the days that you can build. So you can relate this to Ashtanga practice. You're feeling flexible and strong. You can find some advancement, and other days you're tired, and so you pull back a little bit. And you kind of respect your body, and you take it a bit easy. Maybe don't do some vinyasas or do less practice. And other days you're in pain, and so then you pull back even more. And then you get slowly starts to heal, and then you start to progress again, and get more strength and more flexibility. But it's not a linear process, as you're saying, which we often don't see.
Then you get frustrated when it's not, right? But if you just realize it's not, then it's like, okay, it's okay. Tomorrow's another thing, another day, another beginning.
And there's something to learn from it.
And I love
insight.
I love that you brought up, the Vipassana, because I always, when you're in those 10-day retreats, those words like go in so deep because they're your only source of stimulus. But I always hear like Goenkaji's voice in my head, start again, start again, right? And it's like your 10th hour of meditation that day, and you're like, whoa, okay, I guess I'll just start from the beginning. Here we go.
It's just like that.
Back on the ride.
Well, speaking of which, we should probably let this gentleman back to his family and his beautiful wife, Taramitra, friend of the show.
And tell everyone where they can find you, because you're doing all kinds. You have so many courses online, and you're doing all kinds of workshops this summer. What's coming up for you?
So we, Tara and I were teaching some workshops. We've been a few places already, had quite a busy last month. The next thing we're doing is, I believe, our retreat in Sicily, in beginning of September. Nice small retreat up on Etna, where we currently live. And then we're in Cork. Tara's going to Finland and Madrid. And then we're just planning another workshop in Trieste, in Italy, in November. So we're doing those, and then aside from that, I'm doing a lot of online stuff, online consultations. So I kind of specialize in helping yoga practitioners with injuries and figuring out how they can navigate those using yoga as a therapy, and then also have online courses. So one of my specialties is teaching anatomy in relation to yoga. So I have a number of courses which help the teacher particularly understand the body, and then apply that knowledge, because knowledge is not very useful unless you can apply it. So I'm not a big believer in, for example, teaching a bunch of names of muscles, which don't actually mean anything. It doesn't. Yes, you know which muscle you're stretching, but does it actually help you understand how the body works, and how to work with different bodies, and how to fix problems, how to look at an individual and identify where they're imbalanced and need rebalancing. So I have a number of courses which I have on my platform, More Than Anatomy.
And your platform is called More Than Anatomy. Is that morethananatomy.com or something like that?
Morethananatomy.com.
Lovely.
Beautiful. Well, I hope some people study anatomy with you, because you have such a vast experience of so many different traditions and techniques, and like jungle medicine. And the pranayama, of course, which is so interesting from like just a physiological perspective as well, like balancing our doshas and our energy.
It's so fun. It's so fun to get to know you, because we've been in the same town for decades, and haven't really same village, and I've never really met, but I feel like I've known you the whole time, and so it's really a pleasure to actually sit with you and talk.
You'll have to send me a photo of what you looked like in 2003-4. I did have some hair then.
I had a Mohican at that time. A mohawk, as they call it in North America. But I was sporting a Mohican. I will.
I may recognize you. That's the Russell.
Yeah, that's him.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and spending time with us today. It was such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. Great to chat with you guys. Real pleasure.
Thank you.